Hey everyone, Nate Carter here with today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. In my personal time with God, I've been reading through Genesis and most recently reading through the story of Jacob. Now, when the Old Testament speaks of Jacob, it's often in the context of God himself, that God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you get you get it into your mind that Jacob must have been this powerhouse of godliness and faith. And in some ways he was, but in many ways he was a disaster. And I find that really encouraging when I feel like a disaster, and perhaps you will too. Just listen to a little bit about Jacob's life. So, as he's born a twin, Jacob and Esau, and he's born grasping his brother Esau's heel. And so they name him Jacob, which means he grasps the heel. Later in his life, after he's older, you know what happens. Jacob steals the birthright and inheritance that rightfully would belong to his brother Esau, basically trading them for a bowl of soup, which is a pretty good deal. But obviously a trickster. This is someone who grasps the heel. This is the deceiver. And so he's deceived his brother, and he gets what's rightfully his brother's. Later, he works for Laban, and he ends up working. He's obviously a hard worker. He works 7 years to win over his bride, Rebecca, only to find out on his wedding night, which would be a horribly shocking surprise to find out that it's not Rebecca in the bed next to him, but it's Leah. And then he works another 7 years to win Rebecca as well. And then he deceives Laban. And he deceives him by getting the livestock in this strange encounter where he has the livestock stare at the striped bark, and he tells Laban, "I'll take all the striped and spotted animals that come from the flock," and he's able to get them to breed in such a way that they, a huge majority of the strong ones come out striped and spotted, and he takes them and builds his wealth that way. So he's a deceiver, he's a trickster again. And then Jacob wrestles with God. Do you remember the account in Genesis 32, beginning with verse 24? It says, "Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, 'Let me go, for it is daybreak.' But Jacob replied, 'I will not let you go unless you bless me.'" Again, he's grasping. The man asked him, "What's your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob," that no longer be the grasper, the deceiver, "but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." And the name Israel has to do with the idea of wrestling with God. I think what I find so encouraging about this is that God uses people that are obviously flawed for his grand plans for humanity. Jacob is a deceiver. He's a trickster. He wrestles with God. And then he's named Israel, which has some interesting implications for the nation of Israel that would wrestle with God over and over through its history. But yet God is working in the midst of all of this. Sometimes God is working because of what we're doing. Sometimes God is working in spite of who we are and what we're doing. And I find that encouraging for myself when I feel like I mess up or when I feel like my character is flawed. But I also find it encouraging as I think about the people that I know. And I think, God is working through them even though they're flawed as well. None of us is perfect, but we are all made perfect because of the blood of Jesus, and we are all useful for God's perfect plan because he is able to use all things for his good. God is working. Sometimes we can't imagine how it's possible he's going to work through a situation or through a person or a particular character in our life. But God is working. So be encouraged. God's at work today through you and through those around you. God bless.